Hello, welcome to another Reclaim Open session, everybody who's watching live or later. I'm here with Ilya Kramer, and he's got a session on replacing a live site with a high-fidelity web archive mirror. I'm really excited. Web archiving stuff is awesome, and Ilya's the person. So hopefully everyone enjoys the session, and I'll hand it off to you. So.
Yep, thanks, Taylor. Yeah, I'm going to talk about some recent work that we've done in being able to make it easier to present web archives in a new way. Yeah, first a little bit about what I do and kind of where I work. I work at Webrecorder. We are an open source company. All of our tools are open source. And our focus is, I like to say, web archiving for all. We build and maintain free and open source tools. Our focus is on making it possible for anyone to create and access high fidelity web archives. And by that, we mean archiving sites as accurately as possible, including all the JavaScript, all the interactive elements, and basically exactly what's loaded in the browser. And then also viewing the web archives directly in the browser as well, without requiring anything other than your own browser. As part of that, we have a suite of tools, and we also have a format called WAX-Z, which I'll talk about in a little bit, that is a portable format that stores all the web archiving data. And yeah, just a brief overview of some of our tools. Browsertrix is sort of our main automated archiving tool. It is both we have a integrated application that allows you to start crawls, manage crawls, and view everything. Everything that's in everything that's been archived automatically. Then we also have archive web page, which is our browser extension that allows you to manually create archives as you're browsing. And then we have replay web page, which is the in-browser viewer that is used by both of these other tools. And if there's a chance, maybe I'll demo one of them at the end. But yeah, and then sort of maybe I should have started with this, but what is web archiving? And we sort of like to define this and others as basically the practice of capturing websites at a particular moment in time so they can be accessed later by replaying the content. And we do that by capturing all of the HTTP traffic that's loaded in the browser, and everything that's playing that back, and that includes social media content, anything that is loaded in the browser. And so a little bit about the WAX-Z format. It is basically a zip file. As a quick overview of the structure of it, it contains all of the elements of the page: HTML, JavaScript, images, and that's also bundled into another format called WARC, which is an ISO standard used in web archiving. It has a list of pages in a JSON-L file. It also has indices of where to find everything for a particular page, and it has support for cryptographic signatures as well. That's part of the spec that you could actually verify that an archive was created by someone that claims that they created an archive. And so that's all part of the WAX-Z format spec. And so now I'll talk about a little bit about how web archives are traditionally accessed. And you're probably all familiar with the Wayback Machine, where typically the actual archive is loaded something like web.archive.org/timestamp/ the URL. Replay webpage also has a similar access for as replayweb.page, then the source, and then the actual URL. So for example, this is how an archive page looks in the Wayback Machine. You're on web.archive.org, and reclick open.com is here. And that works great for many use cases, but if you wanted to access an archive site in a different way, or if you wanted to have the original site still available, you might want a different approach. And this is what I like to call a web archive-based mirror of a site. And the idea is that first you have a site that can be archived. You might want to keep the site at its original domain, or you might move to another domain that you control uh, and not updated if, for example, someone else owns that original domain and you want to keep all the links and all that content working as much as possible. Um, and you might also want to move away from complex hosting and reduce costs. Yeah, and you might not control the original site; it might be owned by someone else or some other entity. And so for that, we have the idea of what I could call a single website powered by a web archive. And for example, the original site might be something like my original site, example.edu, and the mirror site might be hosted on a different domain. So that's one example. In this case, the links will, yeah, and you also want the links to still continue to work. So the page.html on the original domain still works on the archive domain. The original site might be owned by a government or an institution. You might want to self-host it as the author or the archivist. The original site might be loaded from WordPress, Drupal, some sort of custom CMS. But the mirrored site powered by Web Archive can just be operated as a static site, and that's what I'll show a little bit. So there's no backend, basically. It's all loaded entirely in the browser. And while the maintenance of the original might be complex, might require IT infrastructure, the mirrored site just requires a static hosting on GitHub pages. And depending on whether you own the domain or not, you could actually replace the original site. So the mirrored site and the original site might be the same domain. And so how it works is, don't have time to go into a whole lot of detail, but basically we have, there's a static HTML that's loaded when you first access the web archive, and it loads, then it loads the service worker, which is part of the standard web toolkit that's available to all browsers now, and then it loads the appropriate page from the web archive. So when you access, say, for example, a page.html, and it's configured to look up that URL from the web archive. And this is all done by making range requests into the zip file in the WAXI format, and being able to load that. And so, a quick example of that is, so I want to show this site called infiniteulysses.com, which was created by Dr. Amanda Visconti as part of their dissertation in 2015. It was actually one of the first dissertations, I believe, that was archived, and they had the foresight to create an archive of this site and publish it on GitHub. And unfortunately, the original site doesn't really work very well. I think it's aged. The infrastructure might not be working, but I was able to get the archive of that site and recreate a mirrored version that is hosted as a static site, and that version is essentially powered entirely by GitHub pages. And so let me, oh, there it is. Yeah, and so this site loads, you'll see it's that webrecorder.net. And the way that this works is the WAXZ file is here in this repository, and everything is loaded entirely from from essentially GitHub pages as a static site, and I can navigate, and so there is sort of an initial so this is after I've already loaded the site. Let's say I open it in incognito window, just to show. The first thing you'll see is loading web archive, but then it loads the actual site once it initializes the data from the WAXI file. Yeah, and we have a kind of a starter repository on GitHub, this web archive site mirror that can be used as a template to create a web archive hosted mirror, or a web archive powered mirror. And yeah, so a little bit more about how that can be used. Yeah, so we could start with this mirror repository. Well, first you need a web archive, and you could do that manually by using either archive web page or using browser tricks to crawl a site and then export a WAXI file. You need to host the WAXI file somewhere. If it's small enough, you could just add it to the GitHub repository. Otherwise, you could host it on S3 or any web server. You could then fork a new repository from the starter. And then all you really need to do is fill in basically in this JavaScript file that we have, the path to the WAXI file and the URL of the original site. And so if it's the original site, yeah, so it could either be a different site, or it could even be then you set the hosting on GitHub pages to whatever site you want it to be available on, and GitHub pages provides the hosting in that example. And yeah, and so I've also, just in the last half an hour, I've tried to do that for the Reclaim Open site by running a crawl of it. So I ran a crawl of Reclaim Open in browser tricks. And so this is how it appears in our viewer inside of browser tricks. Then I've created a public collection, which allows us to host, to provide archives to be accessed publicly. And then I got the embed code, and I created a new mirror for this specific. See if I find this repo, and there it is. So and then I went ahead and I edited this init to point to the browser's collection and set it to reclaim open. And yeah, so this is basically how the integration with BrowserTricks works. I do the same thing, and instead of basically use the BrowserTricks API to point to the WAXI file, set the original site. Could also download the WAXI files later. But what I can do then is, and I updated the, and then, and so now I have a mirror of reclaimopen.com hosted on reclaimopen.webrecorder.net. We also have this banner that's part of the starter repo that we have. It can be customized, of course, and so basic idea is that this is now all the links that are on Reclaim Open should still work on reclaimopen.webrecorder.net, and this is powered by a web archive. And so that's sort of the kind of single site idea, and this can be used to essentially turn any site that has been crawled and made it into a web archive into a self-hosted mirror in this way. I know I've covered a lot, but I also wanted to show a more complex example of this, and that is we've done something similar for multiple sites at the same time, and that is with our govarchive.us portal. that was part of our collaboration with Internet Archive and others in archiving U.S. government sites at the end of the Biden administration. And as some of you may know, a lot of sites have been removed by the current administration. And what we've done is we've actually created a multi-site mirror that extends this concept of a single site mirror, where you could essentially take something like usaid.gov, turn it into usaid.gov archive.us, cdc.gov, c.gov archive.us, and then you get mirrors of multiple sites with the same approach. And so this is a little bit more complicated. It basically involves wildcard DNS, and require also has a basically a mostly wildcard DNS is and some other custom configuration. But the idea is the same, is that we also we could also support subdomains. So subdomain.site.gov becomes subdomain-site.gov archive.us. And the way that this works is, we have Bunny CDN as to handle the wildcard DNS and SSL, because GitHub Pages alone doesn't quite support that. And then basically the idea is that once the static site is loaded, it looks not just at the path, but also at the domain, and then looks up the appropriate URL in the web archive. And so some examples of that are something like usaid.gov archive.us, and we have we added a custom load section here. And so on first load, you'll see kind of a spinner as it's initializing the WAXI file, and then once it's loaded, you can essentially navigate the site. The idea is also that you could deep link into, if you have a particular URL, you can provide those links to someone and they'll still work exactly as they were on the original site. So a few more examples here of, there's a subdomain that's mapped to a dash. So this was a nca2023.change.gov archive. We have it presented as the dash here. And of course, these are all sadly sites that have been removed. And so we've kind of applied this concept to preserving US federal government content that has been removed. But it could also be used for single site mirrors. And this, all of this is on GitHub. So I think the starter repo here, and I'm sure I could put that in the chat so everyone can try it out if you'd like. And then the actual, the Gov archive configuration is a separate repo that has a little bit more custom stuff in there. I think that is, I was going to say, so we also have a blog post on how this works on webrecorder.net. We also have all of our tools are free and open source. We also have trials available for Browsertrix if someone wants to try crawling with our hosted version, or you could also use Browsertrix on your own or archive web page directly. So maybe I will pause here, and I don't know if there's any questions.
So there's a couple things that are popping up, and mostly people reacting and saying like, "Hey, this is really cool and important work." I think especially around the Gov archive stuff, I think I just wanted to mention, just because some of what you're showing makes some of this look easy. And I mean, it's easy to use the tools, but I always like to point out to people, if you've tried archiving a web page, I was going to say recently, but I mean like in the last 20 years. It's the high fidelity part, I think, is what makes this pretty amazing, right? Because it's very difficult with most other tools to try and actually get something that looks at all like the real thing. So using stuff like browser tricks, or doing it, one page at a time with archive web.page is really really does take a hard problem and solve it in kind of an amazing way. The I'm kind of curious with the I mean, this is, I guess, a little bit inside baseball, so sorry. But I'm kind of curious, like, archiving large sites like the U.S. government sites. Like, did you all run into challenges with like blocking or rate limiting or anything, or is that kind of not that
Yeah,
difficult to
that's
deal with?
well, yes. I mean, I think nowadays with and for anyone who's watching this, I just thought I'd show sort of browser tricks in action. So this is our so we're crawling the Reclaim Open site and kind of see the live crawler going. But yes, there's definitely, especially with the growth of AI crawlers, I think many things have become more locked down and more rate limited. So I think we do, and there are options in browser to kind of slow down. So like right now, I'm running 4 windows at a time. I could adjust it to one window and have it pause on each page before moving on to next. But yes, that is kind of a one of the many challenges that we face, and of course, we also want to be, you know, courteous of the site and not, uh, yeah, while at the same time being able to, especially if someone's trying to archive their own site, which is kind of generally what we do is we provide tools for people to archive their own sites. I think in the case of the government archives, it was kind of an exception to that because, well, the government is actively deleting stuff, so
Yeah.
so we can't really count on them to do that. But yeah, and then yeah, it definitely has been a challenge, and something that we're working on to address in multiple ways.
Yeah, it is kind of, it's a tricky thing. Obviously we kind of deal with almost the opposite side of it with hosting. But I will say most of the stuff that we have to block is like extremely abusive. It's like, what if I try to request the same URL 1,000 times in 3 minutes? It's like, no, it's not really what the same kind of thing. But it's cool that you all have tools and strategies to kind of mitigate some of that. So that's awesome.
Yep, yeah, and it's yes, web archiving continues to be kind of a constant challenge, and yeah, and so we're we're off. It's often a cat and mouse game where we have to kind of adapt to new challenges that arise. Um, yeah, and that's just kind of the way it is in
Sure.
some ways. But yeah, with this mirroring, yeah, the idea is that hopefully for someone who is trying to host or has a legacy site that they don't want to host anymore, or isn't is not yeah, it's just difficult to maintain for a variety of reasons, or it might be taken down, but they still want to make it available kind of on its own domain. That this is kind of another possibility for that.
Awesome. Well, I if folks have questions, we still have a couple minutes yet, and you can absolutely put them in the chat. And I don't know if Ilya, you had anything else you wanted to go through, but it's been fantastic to have you here and have you talking about some of the work you all are doing at Webrecorder, and we really appreciate it. I think we all, I say all, I hope mean folks watching too, not just us at Reclaim. So
Yeah, if anyone, I know I kind of covered a lot of stuff very quickly. I think you already put all the links in the the chat. But yeah, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions with how to use the tools, or if you have an existing web archive or want to create a web archive and then turn it into a mirror, would be happy to help out with that.
And I might throw you, given we have just a little bit of time yet. I might throw you a couple hypotheticals here. So if someone's watching this and has this comes up at least once in a while for, I think, customers I help, but they've got a site that they haven't updated in a long time. They are still it still works, but they don't expect it to work long because no one's updating it. And I know you've mentioned this, but where should they go first to look for a tool to archive that? I know there's a couple different ways, but let's say they have a small site with only a few pages. What would you suggest they do first?
Yeah, so if it's just a few pages that they could visit manually, the archive web page extension. So I've showed browser tricks, but I could also show, archive web page is a more manual approach. The browser tricks, as I was showing, automatically crawls pages, and we have a service around that. Although it's also open source and you can self-run it. We also have the browser extension that is archiveweb.page, and with that installed, here I will share my screen very briefly while we still have a few minutes. So what that allows you to do is then, so for example, you want to, let's say I want to archive this page. The extension, once you install it, appears here. You can create, so let's say I create reclaim. And what it does is once I start archiving, and hopefully this will not mess up the streaming, I'm using it in the same browser, it will archive everything that you're loading in this particular page, basically. So it'll, and you can direct what to archive, what not to archive, and kind of pick and choose. And so if you only have a few pages, this might be kind of a way to start with that. And then you can also export the WAXZ file in the same way.
Yeah, and that's the really cool thing about this for folks who haven't used it before. To the types of archives that Ilya, you were showing with the Gov Archives websites and the sample one that you made for Reclaim Open just now. That's kind of like in my view, like the last, like the end product, kind of like here's ultimately like the best way to look at this, or one of the best ways to look at this. But what you'll get immediately with the archive web.page tool, the extension, or browser tricks, is you'll get a file, right? So you can look at that file, you can play it back, you can see, does this look how I expect? Is everything there? Which is really nice, because you can that can be local. You can just hang on to the file if you don't want to host it anymore.
Yeah, this was kind of the more kind of we only had so much time to cover, but that's the kind of the entry level, or the sort of starting point. You can absolutely start with archive web page, and then so for example, it's already archived 5 megabytes here. I think if I play this video, it will also archive that, although we're kind of archiving
ours as it's happening.
Maybe I will do that. I think this is the live stream. Well, I think it might actually get the beginning of the live stream, but I will try to mess with that. But I'll click on other pages, so you can see the size counter going up, and then I can, for example, click on other pages, and then I could click on view archive pages, and so we've archived these 3 pages. It also takes a screenshot, and then I can download the WAXZ file of this, and then I could view it in using replayweb.page directly in my browser. Yep, that's sort of the core operations, and then the mirroring is built on top of that. Yep.
Yeah, and so and now we're over time. I'm sure some people will be filtering onto the next session, but and I'll just plug it again. The browser tricks is the tool that is it's a platform that you all run that's automated that can do that, but it clicks on everything for you essentially in the background and can do a thorough job of it. Especially useful for larger sites or many sites. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Taylor, and thanks so much for having me. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. And see y'all everyone at the next session.
Yep.
Nom nom nom.